Hi, thanks for checking out another video. I'm Jermaine
And I'm Renee.
and
We're
we're
the
the
Macks.
Macks. We're gonna talk about hardship in marriage today. And
Yeah.
for us, we've been married for 12 years, and the first 5 or 6 years of our marriage were extremely difficult for us. It was a time that really showed us who we are as a man and woman, as husband and wife.
Yeah.
And it's really the grace of God now why we could look back and share these stories so openly, so willingly.
Absolutely.
And our hope is that in sharing these stories, they will help someone, they will impact at least one marriage. And we're going to be sharing with you the truth. We're not going to hide anything, we're not going to sugarcoat anything. We're going to share it as it happened. And our hope is that you will be comfortable sharing with us as well in the comments below what it has been like for you and where you are in your marriage, and what principles of God have you stood on for your marriage.
Yeah. All right, so let's go. Okay, so the Jermaine would have mentioned that the time in our marriage was the first 5 or 6 years, and we did a whole video on the first 5 years of our marriage, and you can check that out and get the full story. But what we want to zoom in on today is specifically how we dealt with the hardships that were before us. And the truth is that before Christ, for us, um, we would have started walking with Christ in 2014 in a real way.
That would have been the 5th year of our marriage.
Right. And before that, we were kind of all over the place. So we didn't do premarital counseling. We didn't have
First mistake.
yeah. We didn't have a couple who was guiding us along the route of marriage, and we were kind of just trying to figure things out along the way.
And because of that, we pulled from many sources.
Yeah.
So we took the feedback of those closest to us.
Mhm.
And at the time, those influences weren't married, weren't Christian,
Yeah.
weren't both at the same time. If they were married, they weren't Christian. If they were Christian, they weren't married.
Right.
And we just weren't surrounding ourselves with the right
Type of
sources.
counsel, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it led to a lot of trial and error and a lot of errors in our marriage.
Yeah.
And those kind of piled up. So we were constantly at each other's necks, like arguments, and people see us now and think it's hard to believe.
I feel like I can't imagine you two arguing.
But the truth is that we were having explosive arguments, like so frequently.
I would have fits of rage. I would throw my phone. I'd punch the wall. I'd punch the closet. It's crazy.
And it got so bad at one point that I really started to wonder, is he going to hit me next? And it was scary to see, because he would like ball his fists, and then he would turn and punch the wall instead, and I'm like, all right, so maybe he won't hit me, you know what I mean? But it was also still scary because I was seeing this rage come out of him that I didn't know before.
So let me be clear before some of you freak out in the comments. At no point in our relationship has there been any physical abuse.
No, there hasn't.
Right? So let's just set the record straight. Now, what Renee is talking about is real though. There was real anger. There was real pain. There was real hurt that we both were experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know how to express it in the right way. So that came out as anger, and that's a very real thing a lot of men go through, even Christian men, because if you think about it, we don't always have an outlet to express ourselves, especially growing up. And that, along with other factors, can lead to just pent up anger.
Right.
Because then I didn't know how to communicate the pain and hurt I was experiencing to her. And so it came out as anger. So I just wanted to say that so that you guys don't think,
No, it never got there, and I'm thankful.
Mm.
But also, I was kind of on the opposite end of that spectrum. So I would be very angry, but I would bottle it up. I would shut down and kind of go inside myself and
Yes.
stop talking and kind of try and keep everything inside. And that was tearing me apart. It was literally eating me alive. And I couldn't tell him either because of how I was dealing and how I was processing. And that for me led to depression.
Yeah.
And we both would have experienced depression at different phases in our
so
marriage.
so just hearing ourselves talk about what it was like, it feels, in one sense, it feels so long ago. And yet, in another sense, like some of those emotions, it's just recently that we're able to really move past them. And that's kind of how, a marriage may work sometimes. You may move past an incident, but the underlying things that are there, the underlying hurt, the underlying pain could take years to work through and heal. And that's the thing about, enduring hardship in marriage. It can, you can have a lot of little things that build up to this boiling point. It boils, and just like you'd say a pot, or a volcano boiling over, there is no ash and steam and everything coming out, and it will damage the
Everything
area around it.
Yeah.
And it takes, just like a country who experiences a volcano, that impacts a country for months and years after that incident. And it's the same thing. So healing takes time. Getting over it takes time. We'll maybe speak a little bit about forgiveness as well, maybe in another video, but there's just so much.
So the healing takes time, and it also takes the effort of both parties, because one person can't fix the marriage.
Yeah.
It has to be an agreed direction that you're going in.
We have to both think that there's something to be fixed, or we both have to agree on what the issue is, because communication was a big thing. We did not agree on what the problem was. We thought the problem was the other person.
The other person. It was always the other person.
So in an area of finances, I thought Renee was the problem. We weren't looking at how we both were spending. We weren't looking at how we were treating our money. We weren't looking at the fact that we were too liberal with debt. Those things were the problem. So.
Right. So, we've kind of given you the backstory as to where we're coming from and what brought us to our breaking point. But we're going to talk a little bit now about the actual tips for enduring, right? Full disclaimer for us, when we were getting married, though we weren't walking with the Lord at the time, when we were getting married, we had both agreed that divorce was not an option for us. So though eventually we started thinking about it, it was not something that was desired.
Did we even really understood what we were saying at that point?
No, we probably didn't. But the fact is that we had agreed that it's one and done. We're not planning to divorce. We're not planning to remarry at some point in our lives. This is the one marriage we want to have, and that's how we had gone forth. And that kind of kept us for a big chunk of that difficult period that we were going through. So one thing that was very powerful for me after I gave my life to the Lord and started walking with Him and really, really searching for help. Like, I would be praying and crying to Him for help, to be better, to be a better wife, to have a better marriage. One of the scriptures that came to the fore for me was James 1:2-4, and it says, count it all joy when you face various trials, because it is the testing of your faith that produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect work complete in you, so that you may be spiritually mature, right?
Lacking nothing.
And lacking nothing. And I literally wrote it on a piece of paper and stuck it in the closet, so that I would see it every single day, every single morning that I was getting ready. I would read it, because it was a very trying period. It was a very troubling period in our lives and in our marriage, and I just couldn't understand how to fix it.
Yeah.
And so I started to develop this relationship with God, this dependence on Him to take us through each day. So it wasn't like, oh, one big fix, snappy fingers kind of thing, but it was going through each day with the Lord and saying, okay, Lord, what should I do today? How can I be better today?
Yeah.
What change can be made today? How can I be more gracious to my husband? How can I come out of my shell, and start speaking to my husband, start respecting him, start treating him with respect, start communicating to him in a loving way, even when I'm upset. So it was one step at a time, one day at a time, understanding that this trial, this trouble was there for a reason, and it was there to build my own faith and my relationship with God.
Yeah. And the next tip I would give you in this regard is that both persons have to be committed to making the marriage work. At some point, you have to get on the same page about what the issues are, get on the same page about the strategy that you're going to use to solve them. It doesn't mean that the issue goes away, but you're both committed to working on the issue using the same approach. So the point that Renee just made, she started to intercede for our marriage before I did. But I had to get on the same page in interceding with her for us both to see the change.
Right.
So she was praying for me. The Lord worked on my heart. I had to start praying for her, for the Lord to work on her heart. And then we both started to work on our marriage together. Right?
Mm.
So you both have to choose that you're not going to call it quits, that you're going to work at it, you're going to be committed to each other in love, and you're going to, don't think that once you make that agreement that you're working on it together, your problems will go away forever. That is not the case. But if you have the same mindset, Paul speaks about being of the same mind. If you're of the same mind, then we find that is just really, really important in making progress.
Right. And Paul also said in marriage you will have trouble. Right? So trouble will come, but how you deal with it matters.
Yeah.
And it is the how we deal with it that brings us to that next stage of marital development, of unity, of oneness, and not division.
Yeah.
So the third thing is get the help you need. Get the help you need, because as we said, we didn't have the guidance. We didn't have anyone to say, anyone who we could go to and say, how do we deal with this really?
So our help came in many forms over many years.
Yeah.
But the point we're making here is that we could not have done it ourselves.
Exactly.
So we started to join couples life groups. We started to be around other couples sharing the same challenges we're going through.
Yeah.
When we started to hear those stories, we're like, wow.
Mm-hmm. And so we had to be willing to be open and vulnerable enough with other people, with other couples, to say, we're going through this challenge. We don't know how to fix it. Then to hear from them, well,
we tried this, we did this.
Exactly. And they were able to then give us some guidance, some direction to say when we were experiencing this, because these were now more experienced couples, older couples,
it's
Christian
for
couples.
A long time we were the youngest in terms of marriage in all of the groups that we were in. And I was like, can these people really relate to us? But the point is they have
Been there. Exactly.
Yeah.
And because they were there, they're able to say to us, here's a recommendation, here's a suggestion. And there's nothing wrong with being in that position where you don't know the most in the room.
Yeah.
You know?
So the next way in which we got help was not just on the marital perspective, but the individual perspective.
Yes.
So there was work that needed to be done on us because there was some baggage that we came into the marriage with. There was some
Right.
hurt and pain we brought into the marriage. There were some expectations we brought into the marriage that we were kind of bearing down on the other person.
Right.
We had to work on those things. There were, self-esteem issues. There were, issues of rejection that we were using to kind of just make the other feel guilty for
Right.
not doing what we needed them to do.
Yeah.
We had to get help.
And there were also times that we didn't even know what we really wanted. Well, let me speak for myself. I didn't even know what I really
Neither of us
wanted
knew.
or
That's fair.
needed.
Yeah.
The whole daddy issue thing is real. And I brought that into our marriage.
So daddy issues doesn't just mean that you don't have a father, because I have a father rather, and I had daddy issues.
Right.
so it's, we both had that to deal with.
Right. And we both brought it into the marriage, but we didn't know what we were bringing in, and we certainly didn't know how to handle the repercussions, the fruit that was coming out of those issues that we had brought in. And so we needed individual help. So through life groups, through individual counsel with our pastors, with our disciples, and just getting into the Word of God for ourselves as well. And we want you to know that when we're giving you these pointers in terms of enduring hardship, and we're referencing small groups, we're referencing the Bible, we're referencing your relationship with God, this is not theoretical, and this is not highfalutin.
We literally would not be here being married for almost 12 years if it were not for the things that we mentioned.
Exactly. So it is very practical, but it requires your commitment to it.
Yeah.
It requires you as husband and wife saying that you want to push through this difficulty, you want to break through this barrier that is in your life, because what you must understand is that marriage is not something that the enemy wants. So in itself, marriage is troublesome, right? Marriage brings trouble because
marriage may attract trouble.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And so there are layers of things that you're dealing with as husband and wife, and you are strongest when you are in agreement with each other. When you come together and you are facing and you're battling that thing together is when you're strongest.
Yeah.
So yeah, the enemy is going to try to separate you, divide and conquer kind of thing. So you must have that resolve to say, you will not win.
Yeah. So the next point
Go right ahead.
that we will say is change your perspective. Right? So there are some things that between a man and a woman, you may spend your entire marriage working through. So communication, that's always something to work on. There's never perfect communication. So if you have the right perspective, that maybe some days we'll say something the wrong way, maybe some things we'll hear something the wrong way. And there may be just challenges depending on, what's going on at work, what's going on in our personal lives. Like, so many things can impact that. So our perspective of challenges, it means that there is something underlying that maybe needs attention.
Right.
So if you look at challenges as an opportunity to say, okay, what is it that we need to really focus on? Right? Because in the past, we would look at what we're arguing about as the issue. Now we understand that, okay, all right, we had an argument. What what is it really about?
Yeah.
So we can say, well, we're arguing because really we didn't get to spend a lot of time together. So the argument is the way that we seek to draw close, because
we need some attention from each other.
When you're arguing, you don't leave that space.
Right.
So an argument is actually something we used to do very well to get each other to get each other to pay attention.
Yeah.
Right. So just have the right perspective, and you'll find that what you saw as problems, some of them may not be problems, but opportunities to work on a particular area.
And I think finally, we will say, extend grace. Extend grace to your partner. We are all flawed, and there is no one person who is always right in the marriage.
Do not use absolutes in marriage.
In life, period.
Yeah. We're talking about marriage.
Yeah, but yeah. So extend grace to the other person. We have to be allowed room to make mistakes
and to change our mind,
and to and to grow and to expand and to evolve as individuals. You should not be holding someone to something that they said 2 years ago.
10 years ago.
You know,
that you would never do this and you just did it. I can't believe you.
Right. And that's also why we don't use absolutes. You know, I would never.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
But yes, extend grace. Seek to communicate with each other in love. Seek to constantly be growing in grace, giving them the benefit of the doubt, not casting judgment on your partner, not implying motive or what is the word I'm looking for?
Making assumptions.
Thank you. or making assumptions about why they've done what they've done. Take the time to truly speak to the person. Seek not to be offended. You know, but instead to give them the benefit of the doubt, and so that you can have a productive conversation and you can both grow together.
So one of the things that made a difference for me in that regard is when I started to say, I thought it, believed it, and started to say to her that we're on the same team.
Yeah.
And so when something would happen, even at the point of frustration, I would say, we're on the same team. It's okay. We'll talk about it. We'll work through it.
Yeah.
And that meant that what I was saying to her at that point is that regardless of how this started, it is going to end and we'll still be together. And so that, takes some of the edge off when you're trying to work through things if you keep hearing same team and you actually mean it. Right.
Right. And so I think that kind of brings us to the end of that.
Yeah. So a few videos that we recommend. There is one that we did called the 5 Things We Wish We Knew Before We Got Married. We highly recommend you watch that video. There's also the story of our first 5 years of marriage and
our
next
next 5 years.
5 years of marriage. We recommend you watch those.
So if you are in a difficult period in your marriage now, we just want to encourage you to hold on. Don't give up. Don't give in to the desire and the temptation to leave, but instead give it a true try together. Give it your best shot to seek help, to get on the same page with each other, extend grace to your partner, and seek the Lord and stand on His promises, stand on His word.
So if you're with someone who is not saved, the best thing that we could recommend in that case is that you need to pray, believe, and trust God. So just because somebody is not saved now, even if you're married to them, it doesn't mean that they won't ever be saved. It doesn't mean that your prayers will not work, because remember what we said in the video, Renee prayed for me, and it was her prayer that brought me into right standing with the Lord. So we encourage you not to lose hope, not to give up. And if you're not seeing eye to eye with your spouse, as we also said, get help. Right? If it is that you're not open to getting help, ask the Lord for inspiration as to where you should start. There are times when, I can only speak from a man's perspective, but there are times when Renee would be saying to me, she thinks the problem is X, and the fact that she made a suggestion as to how to solve the problem was an issue for me, because I felt like a man that I should be the one solving the problems. I should be the one saying this is how we fix it. So when she was trying to help by saying I think we should, that just that offering to help was a barrier for me in us working out that issue. So there are many things that may be at play. Just be patient, learn more about each other, and the Lord will lead.
And understand that enduring through this time is purposeful as well. It's building your faith. It's building that endurance. It's building your faith, and it will not go to waste. It's not for naught.
So thanks again for watching. Check out this next video related to this topic we just spoke on, and we'll see you in the next one. Beads of sweat growing. I'm serious. The beads of sweat growing. Like every time I turn and look at you, I'm seeing more sweat. Like literally, as the seconds go, sweat. So I was like, is it raining? Put the fan directly on you. Yes, please. Like, whoa. You can't operate if on the AC, don't you?
Trust me, different levels.
You have to be reachable. Trust me.
Oh boy. Where was I?
I don't remember.
The actual enduring.
Yes. We're about to share the tips for
but actually enduring through the marriage. Right.
You have a sweat mustache.
Oh boy.